This Mini's running rough. So I'm going to take you through the steps that I'm going to use to diagnose the problem with the engine. Before I give you my top tips, let me give you an update of where we are turning that scrap Morris Minor engine into a red Golf GTI for my wife. And remember, don't tell her, it's a surprise. Yeah, that's great news. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. I'm taking this old Morris Minor engine, this 1098cc A-series engine. It was scrap. It's been kicking around my workshop for 15, 20 years. I'm restoring it and trading it up through a series of trades to a red Golf GTI Mark 6 for my wife, her dream car. It's a surprise, so don't tell her. That was Rotherham Engine Supplies on the phone. They're doing the specialist work to the engine before I reassemble it. Well, paint it and reassemble it. It's good news. They've found nothing seriously wrong with the engine at all. They're going to rebore the cylinders. They're going to polish the crank. They're going to skim the head, put new valve inserts in. They're also going to supply me with new pistons, piston rings, circlips, gudgeon pins, that sort of stuff. And it's all coming to £765, including the VAT. I have a budget of about £1,000, so it's now a waiting game while they finish the work, but I've got plenty to be getting on with in the meantime. For a start, this Mini. So I'm going to talk you through the diagnostic process that I'm going to go through in this instance. I'm going to do it all with affordable home equipment that you can buy off the internet relatively cheaply, maybe in total for about 100 quid. But it could save you an awful lot more than that if you could diagnose the problem before you take the car to the garage or you attempt to fix it yourself. One of the first indications of a problem may well just be the yellow engine warning light. In this case, I can feel it's running lumpy as well. So let's get it in the garage. The first thing I'm going to do is a visual inspection, and I'm going to use my torch on my phone and have a good look for any oil leaks or coolant leaks. Now, I know this has got a coolant leak somewhere. Maybe I'll find it while I'm doing this work today. But I'm having a good look around. I'm also going to look to see if there's anything exposed, any belts exposed that look a bit worn or cracked, any hoses, vacuum hoses, anything like that that are looking perished. Nothing. I also need to be aware if it's losing oil, particularly if it's burning it and we're getting a blue exhaust, especially when you rev it up, you may get that. So looking at your exhaust gives you a good indication of the health of the car under the bonnet. White smoke, for example, tells you there's water in the exhaust. That water could be as simple as just condensation because it's been cold and the car's been stood for a while, or it could be the fact that the coolant's getting into the exhaust. If that's true, then it could well be your head gasket, or worse, something cracked inside the engine. If you're getting black smoke, that could be fuel being burnt in the exhaust somewhere, and that's probably down to the air-fuel mixture not being quite right. The first thing I'd check would be the air filter. Make sure it's not clogged and check the air intake system. Could also be the fuel injection or the fuel system. If you're getting blue smoke, that can be a bit more scary. That means oil's being burnt in the exhaust. If you are getting blue smoke from your exhaust, then I suggest you stop using the car as soon as possible because you are risking a catastrophic failure. The oil could be coming from piston rings or serious engine wear. It could also be coming from the valve seals or even the turbo. All of those are serious. Some classic cars, you'll get a tiny bit of blue smoke anyway when they start up, but as they warm up, that will go away. That can be normal for some cars. You've probably seen this trick before. We're going to check for any mayonnaise, any creaminess in the oil we can see, either on the oil filler cap or by looking at the dipstick. A horrible dipstick this. I hate this dipstick. I hate it. When water mixes with oil, you get this sort of creamy mixture, which we often refer to as mayonnaise. And the best place to check for that is in the oil filler cap. Just look underneath it, you might see this mayonnaise. It's pretty obvious when you see it. Now, whilst this can indicate a failed head gasket, or even worse, a cracked block or something, it quite often just does indicate condensation. If a car's very old and it's not used very much, you can get condensation and water getting into the oil. Another cause can be condensation because the car engine never really warms up properly. You do lots of very short journeys. Whatever the reason though, having water in your oil is not a good thing for the oil. The oil is not going to work as well as it would normally do. So make sure you change your oil very frequently if you are having a problem with this, and fix your flipping head gasket if that's what it is. So what I'm now going to do is see if the car can tell me if it's got any faults itself using an OBD2 scanner, which I plug in inside the car. So let's go and take a look. This is an OBD2 scanner, which I got off eBay a few years ago. It's got specialist software in it for a Mini or a BMWs. Very affordable. I don't know what it was. I can't remember. Probably about 40 quid, 50 quid, something like that. This plug here plugs in somewhere under your dashboard, usually in the driver's footwell. So let's try and find the socket for this. Found it. There we go. I may need to turn the ignition on. Right, the ignition's on. So let's go. System scan. I know I cleared the faults on this a few weeks ago, so any faults I read now will be a good clue to what's wrong. I'm going to have to make a list of these faults, so I'll make a note of them. 2A98, oxygen sensor before catalytic converter, sensor wires. So I'm going to write that down. 2A99, 2B67, air mass flow plausibility. Well, this is all sounding rather drastic, so we'll have to check those brake pads. So the clues I've got from the OBD2 reader is that there's a misfire in cylinder 2. Misfire in cylinder 2, if it's not firing properly, it's not burning its petrol properly, then that petrol could be going down the exhaust, and that may be one of the things that's upsetting the oxygen sensor. I know I put in a new oxygen sensor, but that doesn't mean to say I haven't wrecked it already by putting fuel down the exhaust. The worry is, why is it that the cylinder 2 is misfiring? There's a number of reasons for that. It could be head gasket, could be I could have scratched the head when I put it on there so the head gasket isn't sealing properly. It could be the valves, it could be something more serious, but it could also be the timing slightly out. It did read a fault code for the diagnose system, that's the timing system on this car. So I need to have a look at that. To check the head gasket, one of the things I can do is a sniff test. And that's where I unscrew the cap of the coolant, put this in here with a bit of chemical in here. I need to warm the engine first, get the coolant circulating first. So I'm going to loosen the cap. I'm not going to take it off, but it's going to be loose so the pressure doesn't build up in here. I'm going to put a little bit of this mixture in. And once it's been running for a few minutes, I'll stick this in and we'll leave it running for up to 5 minutes and see if this blue liquid changes colour. If it does, that's an indicator there's exhaust gases getting into the coolant. Now that can be a really good indicator that the head gasket is leaking between the exhaust part and the coolant part. So let's start it up. So now with the coolant circulating around the engine, I'm going to stick this in and put a bit too much in. Hopefully you can see here it bubbling through. What you mustn't do is you mustn't rev the engine while you're doing this. Just let it idle. When the engine's warm, never unscrew a pressurized cap on the coolant reservoir or the radiator. You will get covered in boiling hot water and steam. Now I left the cap unscrewed as the engine warmed up, so the pressure didn't build up. There's not really a change in colour. If anything, it's got a slight bit darker, but definitely not turned into an orange or a yellow. And that's great news. Very affordable. Very affordable. Probably get one for less than 20 quid. I'm now going to turn the engine off, let it cool down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a compression test. So it's the next morning, everything's cooled down, and I can continue with my diagnostics. Good morning. No, well, I'm not just kidding, really. This stethoscope is a really useful diagnostic tool. With the engine running, of course, what I can do is I can touch this against the hard surfaces of either the engine or the ancillaries and use it to locate the source of any tapping or knocking sounds that I'm getting. Really useful. So that's my morning rounds done. Let's get back on with stuff. So let's get on with our compression test. First of all, I'm going to remove the coil packs and then remove the spark plugs. I also probably want to reduce the amount of fuel going into the engine. So to do that, I'm going to probably have a look at the fuses and see if I can take a fuse out somewhere. I'll let you know about that in a minute. So these coil packs are pretty new. They've been on less than 1,000 miles and less than a year, and they're NGK, so they're a good make. So I'm not expecting any problem with them. I can now remove the spark plugs, and they might give me a good clue to what the problem is with the misfire on cylinder 2. There's lots of ways you can take the spark plugs out of the deep hole. Some people would use a bit of blue tack or something, some tape on their spark plug, or you can get special rubberized spark plug sockets. Personally, I use my trusty magnet. Take a good look at your spark plugs when you take them out. If they're sooted up, that means the mixture, the fuel-air mixture, is too rich, and there's an issue with the fuel system somewhere. If the electrodes are looking worn, then do replace your spark plugs. If they're looking really clean, then that could be an indication that coolant's getting into your cylinders from somewhere. It may be your spark plugs have got black oily deposits on them, and I guess by now you know that probably means that oil's getting into the cylinder, and that's not really going to be good. If the spark plug's soaking wet with fuel, then the engine's getting flooded. If it looks really dry and burnt, then your mixture's running too lean, or the engine's getting too hot. If your valve seals are leaking and a mist of oil is getting in the engine, then you'll see sort of rough deposits on the outside of the spark plug. Again, NGK spark plugs, they were new last year, the same time as the coil packs, but sometimes you can get spark problems. You can get cracks in them and things like that. There doesn't seem to be any major issues looking at the spark plugs with the naked eye. I will of course check the gaps on them. One of the things I'll do is I'll swap the spark plugs from cylinder 2 and cylinder 3. And if the problem goes to cylinder 3, then we know it's a spark plug and we can replace that. So I've opened up the fuse panel in the driver's footwell and I've taken out F43, a 20 amp fuse. I've got the spark plugs out, I've got the fuel disconnected, I've also connected up a booster pack to the battery because we're going to be turning it over a few times. I've got my pen and paper to write down my results, and I've got a compression tester here. Again, a relatively cheap tool. You can get very expensive ones, but this one's relatively cheap. I've got a few of these. With it being relatively cheap, it may not be the most accurate one in the world, but it's not really the individual readings I'm looking for. Although I have to say, I have found this one to be not bad. But it's not the individual readings I'm looking for, it's the difference between the cylinders. Some people say you should do this with the engine warm. You get a better seal. Well, to be honest, I'm going to get a good enough seal with this at any rate. Be very careful if you've got attachments on the end. You don't want to put them right down inside and screw them in where you screw in your spark plugs, then unscrew this and leave the attachment in there. That would be a nightmare. This one, I've picked through mine and found one with just the right adapter on the end. So I'm going to screw it in where the spark plug goes on number 1. There we go. Just hand tight. There we go. So it's crushed the rubber washer. I'm going to push the little button on the side, make sure there's no pressure in there, put it down, and I'm going to turn the car over 10 times and write down the reading. Yeah, nearly 180 I think I got there. So I'm going to write down 180. I'm going to do that twice for each cylinder and then average my results and see where I am at the end. Well, I'm a very happy man. All the readings have come out very similar indeed. Really, I was looking for 10% error between them, but they're all really around about the late 170s. That tells me the pistons and the cylinders are sealing nicely. There's not a problem with the valves leaking out or anything else. So Fingers crossed the problem is electrical. Well, I say fingers crossed because on electrical on one of these things could be a nightmare. So I'm going to put it all back together, remembering to swap the spark plugs from cylinder 2 to cylinder 3. Swap them round, and let's see if the misfire now moves to cylinder 3. I've also been through all the fault codes. Now, the Vanos solenoid, that could well be an electrical connection, or it could be the solenoid itself. It's the exhaust solenoid on this. There's two solenoids, there's the exhaust and the inlet, and they're both the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the exhaust solenoid out to the front of the engine and put it in, give it a clean, and put it back in the back of the engine, and we'll see if the fault moves there. If it does, then I know I need a new solenoid. If it stays where it is, it's likely to be an electrical connection to that exhaust solenoid. So enough yapping, let's get on and do it. Most spark plugs come pre-gapped. But of course it would make sense for me to check the gap on the spark plugs before putting them back in. I do that with a feeler gauge. Remember to not over tighten your spark plugs. Remember also to lower them in very carefully. The last thing you want to do is damage any threads, particularly in an aluminium head. I've stuffed some paper tissue down underneath the solenoid as I remove it. There was only one bolt there holding it on, so I've taken that out. So now I'm just going to gently try and wiggle it out. I'm expecting a little bit of oil to come out with it. Have I missed something? Get in there. Come on. There we go. A little bit of encouragement. Out it comes. Oh, there goes a bit of oil. Not much. Oh, look how dirty that is. I'll take this to the workbench and give it a good clean up. Right, so I took both solenoids out, cleaned them up, I've swapped them over, so the exhaust one is now in the inlet down here behind this air filter, which annoyingly I'm flipping broken nut removing. So I have to strap them up with a cable tie or something for now. I'll refit this one here in the exhaust and we'll reset the codes, we'll start the car, take it for a little drive and see what happens. Yes, I have remembered to put the fuse back in for the fuel. That's great. I'm just going to turn the ignition on and reset the codes. I'll unplug this. Start it up. And then I can remove the power pack. Oh, running nice. The first bit of good news is there's no engine warning light. The engine's running, a little bit of a rev. It's not brilliant, if I'm honest. Right, let's take it for a spin. Hopefully I haven't left anything under the bonnet. I've checked. I have checked, double checked. I'm terrible. Right, let's go. She's driving quite nicely. Yeah, the real frustrating thing is I quite like these cars. It is a bit spluttery. No, it's not going to make it round the block without the engine management light coming on. Let's see how we do though. Yeah, I quite like these cars. It's just that they're just so unreliable. It's typical BMW rubbish under the bonnet here. Maybe I'm expecting a bit much from it. I mean, it is a 1.4. It's not a Cooper S. It's just the Mini one. And I did buy it for my kids to learn to drive it. So it's not the fastest thing in the world at any rate. I do have to say, it's a lot of fun. It's not an ugly car. It's different. It's quirky. It's got personality. It is fun to drive. I do like it. It is just such a shame BMW have messed up under the bonnet. They really have. When I get home, I'll plug in the fault reader and we'll see what codes we get. I'm sure we will get something. I don't think it's been really smooth. I think there's still something going on here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we have two faults thrown up. Okay, oxygen sensor before catalytic convert. Sensor wires. Okay, that was there before. 287D Vanos inlet actuator movement. So I've got a faulty Vanos solenoid. And when I did take those out and I swapped them over, I did look at them and it did look like an aftermarket part. And one of the problems with some of the cheaper aftermarket parts is they don't last so long. They're not as good. So I'm going to be getting on the internet and finding a replacement, and I'll try and replace it with an original. The brand new Vanos solenoid has arrived. I've gone for a genuine BMW. The replacement part that has already been fitted in there is clearly not BMW, and that's the part that's failed. I've heard stories that the aftermarket parts of these aren't very good at all. So genuine BMW, I'm going to put that in. Remember, I put it in the inlet now. I took it out of the exhaust and put it in the inlet, swapped them over. So to fit the Vanos solenoid, I'm going to take the air box off at the back. I'm going to give it a service, so I'm going to replace the air filter at any rate. I'll put the Vanos solenoid in, and I can also get access to the gear linkage there, and I'll lubricate that while I'm down there, because it can be a bit stiff, especially for the youngest who's learning to drive. They're finding the gearbox a bit stiff, so just a little bit of lubrication on the linkage, that will sort that out. So I'd better get on with it. Okay, here we go. Get my magnet, I'll drop my screw. Here's the air filter. It's not too bad, to be honest. I do service my cars pretty regularly. That probably doesn't need replacing, but I'm going to anyway. Right, there's the old part and the new part. They should be running sweet as a nut now. So now I'm going to reset the fault codes, replace the air filter, grease up the gearbox linkage, and fit the new oxygen sensor, which has just arrived. Let's get on. Here it is, hiding away. Well, that was a bit of a faff, and it's clear that I didn't replace the old one. I thought I had, but to be honest, they've only got a lifespan of around about 100,000 miles. You expect them to fail any time after that. When you put the new one in, be careful to torque it up properly and put a bit of high temperature grease, lithium moly or something like that, grease around the thread before you put it in. Also be very careful never to bash, knock it, or even put any detergent or anything near it, because they are very sensitive. Let's see if it runs smooth. Come on. It's running really smoothly, which is a great relief. There's no lights on the dashboard, no returning fault codes. All I'm going to do now is get the air conditioning topped up, and then my kids can enjoy it for the summer. I gave it a service as well. Take a look at this cabin filter, which was eaten by mice when it was parked up for a few months. Yes, I know it needs a clean. Let's take a quick look at the costs though. The specialist tools I use are all available affordably off the internet, but bear in mind you do get what you pay for in some cases. The parts, ignoring the service parts, well, that was just the Vanos solenoid, which was 55 quid. It was genuine, and the O2 sensor, which is also very important, and that's genuine as well. And that was 55 quid as well. So I only spent £110 on parts. The total time, probably 4 to 5 hours spent working on it. So join me next time when I've hopefully got the engine back and I can look to trading it up for the next project on the way to getting that Golf. Oh, do like and subscribe.